Given everything that has been happening, as I said, really all the way back to August, and rolling right on into summer, which is around the corner, I've heard a lot of talk, people saying that this is the new movement. Matter of fact, that was the big piece in the Times. They were talking about D. Ray McKinson. I think I might be botching his last name, but they were talking about these two black activists that have been working really hard since the event in Ferguson, and saying that they've kind of ushered in this new age of black activism around all of these different incidents. And I just was thinking, I've been thinking about that for a while, like, what exactly does that mean? That this is a quote unquote new movement. What does that mean? What is that, and particularly what does that mean in the context of white supremacy? Can you give your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, I don't think that it means much. I think it means that people have brought an ideology, what people have touted, in terms of Black Lives movements of intersectionality to black politics. Rather than this being a success, I find this to be largely reactionary to a narrative. So, many of the people who are making this argument is that, this is not just about black male death, this is about black women death, like trans death, every identity you can imagine, right? The problem with that is that, while that may be a nice catchphrase and that it resonates with academics, it does not resonate with black people from the working class who are largely marginalized and don't have access to academic language and theories to explain what their movements should look like. Because for them, they experience the world very much the way that, the Washington Post database sees it, which is 304 black people being dead in 2014, 12 of those black people being black women, and 292 of them being black men. So what we've done is we've created a lens. And this is not to dismiss the idea that black women are victims, right? That's not where I'm going with this. But this is to suggest that when you make a movement based on a type of theory which says we should be all-inclusive, that's fine. But if people experience the world where almost 300 black men are dying, and it's their sons, their husbands, etc., and the working class black people who are not fed these kind of representational theories are trying to activate themselves, or trying to protest, or trying to fight for all black people, they're not going to share the same idea and theory of that academics do. So when we look at Black Lives Matter and we say, oh, here are the two figureheads of the movement, what we're really looking at is saying, here are the two spokespeople for how we understand the movement in this bourgeois academic class, and not how working class black people understand the movement. So a lot of those people that are marching for Eric Garner, that are marching for Rekia Boyd, these are people from their communities. These are working class people who may not have had a graduate education, who may not care about intersectionality. The question that we have to ask ourselves are, what are their energies? What's their consciousness of the world around them? And see, this is what I'm always suspicious of. I know every time I come on, I'm always talking about the academic class. But the reason I'm so suspicious of it is because when you look at social media, they dominate that space, right? They dominate how the world interprets what's going on. Black people are rioting because they say there is a structural imposition of violence on them. So this is the time. I really think about this, Gus. Every time there's been a movement in this country, when has it been intersectional? So you think about the gay rights movement. The gay rights movement were based on people who identify with different sexual orientations. It was about their experience. It was about what they said is missing. Now we have a movement where we have working class, predominantly black boys and young men being shot, and we're trying to control the ethics of the discussion because we don't like the reality that's causing people to get upset. And look at the kind of disrespect that we have for our own people. We tell them, we enjoy the fact that you're rioting. We enjoy the energy. But at the same time, we come back and say that very same black community that's confronting cops, that's standing up to tear gas and pepper spray, we think you're pathological. Because the reason that you're not focused on these other bodies, like trans peoples and black women, is because fundamentally you're pathologically sexist. You see, and that's the problem. That we expect movements, and we expect revolts, and we expect revolution to move along the ethical theories that we've defined based on our ideologies that we've learned from universities, rather than understanding that the riot, the resistance, or the revolution may, in fact, be the contradiction and dismissal of everything we've learned in universities. Because as much as we've learned the theories and the jargons of intersectionality, as much as we learned the ideas of deconstruction, those things have not energized people to form social movements and resist cops the way that the death of these young black men and boys have, and the effect that their deaths have had on families, have had on mothers, have had on sisters, and other community organizations. Right? And that's what we miss. So when I see things like that from Time, or when I see that from Ebony, I really do see those as other attempts for certain groups of people to get a certain recognition for ideas. It's just like when they were trying to copyright the hashtag Black Lives Matter. I find these to be neoliberal or capitalistic ideas that I've created something or I've named something, so I need to make sure it's copyright. This is us absorbing the ideas of property, of intellectual property. This is not about us trying to spread consciousness to a whole mass of people.